right up there in the highlands of Ethiopia. And then they have an ancient church, the Church of St. Mary, cathedral actually of St. Mary of Zion, where the ark apparently was kept for hundreds and hundreds of years. Before that it was kept elsewhere, and then now it's been moved into a chapel that stands next to St. Mary of Zion Cathedral.
It has been about 2,612 years since the Ark of the Covenant disappeared without a trace. Since then, many authors and historians have searched for what happened to the Ark and its whereabouts today. But now, Graham Hancock claims to have uncovered something that could change everything. Interestingly, Hancock has also revealed how the Ark could be opened and what might be hidden inside it. However, the truth behind his claims is still a mystery. What did Hancock discover, and what could it mean for Israel and the world? Stay tuned as we uncover what was found inside the Ark of the Covenant. What Graham Hancock about the Ark of the Covenant. Aside from the famous book by Graham Hancock where he gave so many theories about the Ark of Covenant, he has reportedly revealed how to open the Ark. Graham Hancock's interest in the Ark of Covenant did not just start today. Before he became known for exploring ancient civilizations and lost histories, he was already searching for the Ark of the Covenant, one of the most mysterious objects mentioned in ancient books. His search was based on one simple question that has remained unanswered for centuries. If the Ark really existed, where did it go? Hancock seems to have uncovered shocking details, and what he found could change what you think you know. In 1992, Graham Hancock published The Sign and the Seal, a book that became one of the most discussed works surrounding the mystery of the Ark of Covenant. In the book, Hancock followed the historical and religious clues connected to the Ark, traveling through places such as Ethiopia, Egypt, and Israel while examining old traditions, ancient writings, and stories passed down through generations. His argument was not that the Ark was simply a missing biblical object waiting to be found, but that it may have been connected to a much older story involving forgotten knowledge and civilizations that disappeared from history. Hancock's work came during a period when interest in lost civilizations and ancient mysteries was growing. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, he became one of the most recognized writers exploring the idea that some ancient societies may have possessed knowledge that modern historians had not fully understood. When it came to the Ark, he suggested that the object might not have disappeared completely after the events recorded in the Bible. Instead, he proposed that it may have been preserved through hidden traditions and carried into another region of the world. The center of Hancock's theory was not Jerusalem, where the Bible places the Ark for much of its history, but Ethiopia. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, the Ark of Covenant is believed to be located in the city of Aksum, inside the Church of St. Mary of Zion. This tradition claims that the Ark was brought to Ethiopia thousands of years ago and has been protected there ever since by a specially chosen guardian. Hancock became one of the people who brought international attention to this Ethiopian claim. He traveled to Aksum and examined the stories surrounding the church and the people who believed the Ark had survived there. The Ethiopian tradition itself is much older than Hancock's writings, but his book helped introduce the idea to a much wider audience outside Ethiopia. According to this belief, the Ark is not lost at all. It has simply remained hidden from the rest of the world. But that's not all. The connection between Ethiopia and the Ark story is closely tied to the ancient legend involving King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. The Bible records in 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 1 that the Queen of Sheba traveled to Jerusalem after hearing about the wisdom of King Solomon. Ethiopian tradition expands on this story and claims that the relationship between Solomon and the Queen of Sheba produced a son named Menelik II, who later became the first emperor of Ethiopia. According to this tradition, Menelik traveled to Jerusalem and eventually brought the Ark of Covenant back to Ethiopia. Hancock explored this story as one of the possible explanations for how such a sacred object could have moved from Israel to Africa. He connected the biblical account of Solomon with Ethiopian royal history, arguing that the story of the Ark may have continued through a royal line that protected the object for generations. However, Hancock's ideas went beyond just the movement of the Ark from one location to another. He also explored the possibility that the ancient Israelites viewed the Ark as more than a religious symbol. In his writings, he discussed the descriptions of the Ark in the Bible and how priests interacted with it. The Ark was described as the place where God's presence appeared to the Israelites, and it was carried during important moments in their history. The Bible describes the construction of the Ark in Exodus chapter 25, verse 10, where God instructed Moses, saying, "And they shall make an ark of shittim wood. 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the height thereof." The ark was covered with gold and contained sacred items, including the tablets of the 10 Commandments. Hancock examined these descriptions and suggested that the priests of ancient Israel may have possessed knowledge that was later forgotten. Another part of Hancock's exploration involved the Knights Templar, a medieval Christian military order that became surrounded by many legends. Some theories claim that the Templars discovered hidden knowledge or ancient treasures connected to Jerusalem after their activities in the Holy Land. Hancock examined these stories and considered whether the Templars could have encountered information connected to the Ark. The Templar connection remains one of the more controversial parts of the wider Ark mystery. There is no confirmed historical evidence proving that the Knights Templar found the Ark or knew where it was located. However, stories about the order have continued for centuries because of their connection to Jerusalem, ancient religious sites, and unexplained treasures. Although Hancock's findings about the Ark have remained largely speculative, the biblical account of the Ark presents an entirely different dimension of the mystery. Let's now turn to that biblical narrative to understand how the Ark first appeared and what role it played in ancient Israel. Biblical history of the Ark of the Covenant. Beyond Graham Hancock, the biblical history of the Ark of Covenant is another fascinating mystery that has captured the attention of historians, religious scholars, and people searching for answers about ancient Israel. Long before theories about Ethiopia, hidden knowledge, or lost civilizations became connected to the Ark, the story of this sacred object began in the wilderness, with a direct instruction believed to have come from God Himself. The Ark was not a forgotten treasure or a mysterious artifact. It was created as a symbol of a covenant between God and the people of Israel, and it carries one of the most important signs of their faith. The story begins during the period when the Israelites had escaped from Egypt and were traveling through the wilderness under the leadership of Moses. According to the traditional biblical timeline, this happened sometime between the 13th and 15th century before the Common Era. After the Israelites reached Mount Sinai, Moses received instructions about how the nation would worship and how a special sanctuary would be built among them. One of the most important instructions was the creation of the Ark of the Covenant. In Exodus chapter 25, verse 10, God instructed Moses to build the Ark of Covenant. The instructions were detailed. The ark was to be made from acacia wood and covered inside and outside with pure gold. It would have gold rings attached to its sides, with poles placed through the rings so that the priests could carry it without touching the ark directly. The construction of the ark was later carried out by Bezalel, the son of Uri, from the tribe of Judah. According to Exodus chapter 37, Bezalel was chosen and given the skill needed to build the sacred objects of the tabernacle. He created the ark using acacia wood, covered it with gold, and placed the golden cherubim on top of it. These details were not treated as simple decoration. Every part of the ark had a specific meaning connected to the worship and relationship between God and Israel. Inside the ark were the tablets of stone containing the 10 Commandments, which represented the covenant between God and the Israelites. Exodus chapter 25, verse 16 states, "They shall put into the ark the testimony which God shall give thee." The ark became the physical reminder of the agreement made between God and the people after their deliverance from Egypt. However, beyond this there is more to the story of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was placed inside the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary that the Israelites carried throughout their wilderness journey. It was kept in the innermost room known as the Holy of Holies, a place separated from the rest of the sanctuary. Only the high priest could enter this area, and even then, only at specific times. The Ark was positioned behind a curtain, separated from the rest of the people, showing the importance and sacredness attached to it. For many years, the Israelites carried the Ark with them as they traveled through the wilderness. It moved ahead of them during important moments and became closely connected with their victories and struggles. When they eventually reached the land of Canaan, the Ark played a major role in the story of their entrance into the Promised Land. According to the book of Joshua, the Israelites crossed the Jordan River while carrying the Ark. In Joshua chapter 3, the priests carrying the Ark stepped into the river and the waters stopped flowing, allowing the people to cross on dry ground. The Ark was also connected to the famous Battle of Jericho. According to Joshua chapter 6, the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho for 7 days while carrying the Ark. The priests carried trumpets and the people followed behind them. On the 7th day, after they completed the march and the people shouted, the walls of Jericho collapsed. After the Israelites settled in Canaan, the Ark was kept at Shiloh during the period of the Judges. Shiloh became one of the main worship centers before Israel had kings. The Ark remained there for many years, and the priestly family of Eli was responsible for the religious duties connected to the sanctuary. During this period, the Ark represented the center of Israel's worship and national identity. However, the story of the Ark took a dramatic turn during a war between Israel and the Philistines. Around the 11th century before the Common Era, according to the traditional timeline, Israel suffered a major defeat at the Battle of Ebenezer. Hoping that the Ark would bring them victory, the Israelites brought it from Shiloh into the battlefield. But instead of winning, they were defeated, and the Philistines captured the Ark. The event is recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 4. The Philistines carried the Ark away and brought it to Ashdod, placing it inside the temple of their god Dagon. But according to 1 Samuel chapter 5, the presence of the Ark was followed by disasters among the Philistines. The statue of Dagon was found fallen before the Ark, and the people of the cities where the Ark was taken experienced suffering and sickness. After the Ark was moved through several Philistine cities, including Gath and Ekron, the Philistines decided to return it. In 1 Samuel chapter 6, they placed the Ark on a cart pulled by 2 cows and sent it back toward Israel with offerings. The Ark eventually arrived in Beth Shemesh, and later it was moved to the house of Abinadab at Kiriath Jearim, where it remained for many years. The Ark stayed there until the time of King David. After David became king and established Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, he decided to bring the Ark into the city. 2 Samuel chapter 6 describes David bringing the Ark to Jerusalem with celebration, music, and dancing. The event showed that Jerusalem was not only becoming a political center, but also a religious center for the nation. Years later, David's son Solomon built the first temple in Jerusalem. When the temple was completed, Solomon placed the Ark inside the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. 1 Kings chapter 8 describes the moment when the priests brought the Ark into the temple and placed it beneath the wings of the cherubim. At this point, the Ark had moved from a traveling object in the wilderness to the central symbol of Israel's worship in the most important religious building in the nation. But centuries later, Jerusalem faced destruction. In 586, before the Common Era, the Babylonian army under King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the city and burned the first temple. The Israelites were taken into exile in Babylon, and many treasures from the temple were carried away. Yet, when the Bible records the destruction of Jerusalem, it does not clearly explain what happened to the Ark, and this silence is what has fueled countless theories and mysteries surrounding the Ark for centuries. But what really happened to the Ark after the fall of Jerusalem? Let us find out. The myths. surrounding the Ark of Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant has remained a mystery for centuries, with people still debating its place in history and religion. The biblical account tells the story of a sacred object connected to the Israelites, their worship, and their relationship with God. But beyond the pages of the Bible, another story began to grow. It was a story filled with hidden secrets. Long after the Ark disappeared from the biblical record following the destruction of Jerusalem, people continued searching for answers. Some believed it was hidden beneath the ground. Others believed it was carried to another country. Some claimed they had found clues pointing toward its location. Yet every theory seemed to create more questions than answers, leaving the Ark surrounded by mysteries that have lasted for centuries. One of the most famous modern searches was led by Vendell Jones, an American researcher who spent years looking for ancient temple treasures connected to the Ark. Beginning in the 1980s, Jones focused his attention on the Judean desert near Qumran, the same region where the famous Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered between 1947 and 1956. Jones believed the caves around Qumran could contain hidden treasures from the ancient Jewish temple. His theory was connected to the idea that before Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 before Common Era, and later by the Romans in 70 Common Era, priests may have hidden important religious objects underground to protect them from being destroyed or captured. During excavations in the 1980s and 1990s, Jones and his team searched areas around the Dead Sea region, looking for signs of hidden temple artifacts. In 1988 and again in 1992, he claimed that his discoveries included ritual items and an ancient incense formula connected to temple worship. He believed these findings supported the idea that more treasures could still be buried nearby. However, Jones never discovered the Ark of the Covenant itself. Despite that, he continued believing that the Ark was still hidden somewhere in the region until his death in 2010. His work kept alive the mystery of whether ancient temple treasures could still be waiting beneath the desert landscape. But while Jones searched the desert, another man claimed that the Ark was not far away from the center of ancient Jerusalem itself. His name was Ron Wyatt, and his claim became one of the most controversial Ark discoveries ever reported. In 1982, Ron Wyatt claimed that he had discovered a hidden chamber beneath the area traditionally associated with Golgotha, the location where Jesus was believed to have been crucified. According to Wyatt, while exploring underground areas near Jerusalem, he found a cave that contained the Ark of the Covenant. His claim became even more dramatic when he said the Ark was positioned directly below the place of crucifixion. Wyatt stated that he had seen what he believed were bloodstains on the mercy seat, the cover of the Ark. He claimed that the blood had fallen through cracks in the rock from the crucifixion site above and landed on the Ark below. Wyatt said he had photographs proving his discovery, but he never produced evidence that could be independently verified. Archaeologists and historians rejected his claims, pointing out that there was no confirmed archaeological record supporting the discovery. Yet the story continued to spread because of how closely it connected two of the most famous religious mysteries in Jerusalem: the death of Jesus and the disappearance of the Ark. Years later, the subject of hidden Jerusalem mysteries returned to global attention through modern media. In 2007, filmmaker James Cameron helped produce the documentary The Lost Tomb of Jesus, which focused on the Talpiot tomb, a burial complex discovered in Jerusalem in 1980. The documentary was not about the Ark of the Covenant, but it created renewed interest in theories about hidden religious discoveries around Jerusalem. Some researchers outside mainstream archaeology connected the discussion to older ideas about lost temple treasures hidden beneath the city. The possibility that ancient objects could still exist somewhere beneath Jerusalem became popular again. Stories about secret tunnels, hidden chambers, and forgotten religious artifacts gained attention. However, no evidence connected the Talpiot tomb or the documentary's claims to the Ark itself. The mystery even reached the attention of foreign governments during World War II. In 1941, British forces entered Ethiopia during the East African Campaign against Italian control of the region. During this period, rumors began spreading that British officers may have attempted to investigate the Ark tradition in Aksum. According to stories repeated in conspiracy circles, British intelligence became interested in whether the Ark was actually in Ethiopia. However, there are no official military records or intelligence documents proving that such an operation happened. Another theory that developed over the years connected the Ark to the Vatican. The Vatican secret archives, now known as the Vatican Apostolic Archive, have long attracted speculation because of the many ancient documents and religious materials preserved there. Beginning in the 1970s, some writers suggested that the Ark may have been taken to Rome after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 Common Era. According to this theory, Roman forces may have captured temple treasures and eventually stored important objects somewhere beneath Rome or inside Vatican-controlled locations. However, no Vatican documents or archaeological discoveries support this claim. By the 19th century, some writers claimed that the Ark may have been taken from the Holy Land and hidden somewhere in Europe, possibly inside old monasteries or religious sites. Yet historical records from the Crusades do not mention the discovery or movement of the Ark of the Covenant. Interestingly, just as the location of the Ark has remained a mystery, so has its connection to the modern state of Israel. What is the link between the Ark of the Covenant and Israel? Keep watching to find out. Ark of the Covenant and the State of Israel. Long before the modern state of Israel existed, the Ark of the Covenant represented the faith, identity, and connection between God and the people of Israel. It was more than a sacred object. It was a symbol of the promise between God and His people. But after the Ark disappeared, Israel went through years of destruction, exile, and rebuilding. The story of the Ark is also connected to how Israel changed from an ancient biblical kingdom into a modern nation shaped by history, religion, and politics. In the biblical period, ancient Israel was not only a nation, but also a religious society where political leadership and worship were closely connected. From around 1200 before the Common Era, according to traditional biblical chronology, the Israelites established themselves in the land of Canaan. Their national life revolved around laws believed to have been given by God, the priesthood, and the worship system connected to the tabernacle and later the temple. The Ark of the Covenant was at the center of this system. It was kept in the Holy of Holies, first in the tabernacle and later in the Temple of Jerusalem. The Ark represented the covenant between God and Israel, and its presence was closely connected with the identity of the nation. The kings of Israel were not viewed simply as political rulers. They operated within a system where religion and government were deeply connected. This structure continued through the period of the Israelite kingdoms. After the reigns of King Saul, King David, and King Solomon, the United Kingdom eventually divided into two separate kingdoms: the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Jerusalem became the center of Judah, and Solomon's temple became the most important place of worship. However, the stability of these kingdoms did not last forever. Something unexpected had happened. In 722, before the Common Era, the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. The Assyrians captured major cities and deported many Israelites to other parts of the empire. This event became one of the major turning points in Israel's history because the northern tribes were scattered, creating what later traditions described as the lost tribes of Israel. A few centuries later, Judah faced the same fate. In 586 before the Common Era, the Babylonian Empire under King Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem and burned the first temple. The people of Judah were taken into exile in Babylon, and the religious center that had existed for generations was destroyed. It was also during this period that the Ark of the Covenant disappeared from the biblical record. The destruction of Jerusalem created one of the greatest mysteries in Jewish history. The Bible records the destruction of the temple and the removal of many treasures, but it does not clearly explain what happened to the ark. Some traditions suggest it was hidden before the Babylonian invasion. Others believe it was destroyed or taken away. This uncertainty created centuries of stories about where the ark might have gone. Even after the exile, the Jewish people returned and rebuilt their religious life. A second temple was eventually constructed in Jerusalem, replacing the one destroyed by Babylon. However, the ark was never mentioned as returning. The center of worship continued without the original object that had represented God's covenant with Israel. Over time, Jewish communities began spreading beyond the land of Israel. The Babylonian exile was one of the earliest major movements, but later events expanded the Jewish diaspora even further. After the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 Common Era, Jewish communities became established across Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. The destruction of the Second Temple by Rome was another major moment in Jewish history. Unlike the First Temple, which was destroyed by Babylon, the Second Temple was destroyed by the Roman army during the Jewish revolt against Roman rule. The event changed Jewish religious practice permanently because temple worship and the priestly system could no longer continue in the same way. Without the temple and without the ark, Jewish religious life developed around synagogues and prayer. Centuries later, another tragedy would deeply affect Jewish history. Between 1939 and 1945, Nazi Germany carried out the Holocaust, leading to the murder of approximately 6 million Jews across Europe. The genocide became one of the darkest events of the 20th century and changed international discussions about the future of Jewish communities. The suffering of European Jews during the Holocaust increased support among many people for the creation of a Jewish homeland. This idea had already been developing decades earlier through the Zionist movement, but the events of World War II accelerated global attention toward the question of Jewish statehood. Zionism emerged in the late 19th century as a political movement advocating for a national homeland for Jewish people. One of its most influential figures was Theodor Herzl, an Austrian journalist and writer who argued that Jews needed their own state because of rising anti-Semitism and persecution in Europe. Unlike ancient Israel, which was a kingdom deeply connected to religious law and temple worship, modern Zionism was mainly a political movement. It focused on creating a national home where Jewish people could live with security and self-determination. The movement eventually played a major role in the creation of the modern State of Israel. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was officially declared after the end of the British Mandate over Palestine. This followed the United Nations Partition Plan Resolution 181 in 1947, which proposed dividing the territory into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Declaration of Israel immediately changed the political situation in the region. The creation of Israel was followed by the First Arab-Israeli War in 1948, after neighboring Arab states rejected the new state and entered into conflict with it. The war reshaped borders and created one of the longest-running political conflicts in modern history. Further wars continued to change the region. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel captured territories including East Jerusalem and the area containing the Temple Mount, one of the most important religious locations in the world. In 1973, the Yom Kippur War brought another major conflict between Israel and neighboring Arab countries. The Temple Mount remains one of the most sensitive places connected to the history of Israel. Today, the Ark of the Covenant is no longer physically present, but its symbolism remains powerful. Discussions about rebuilding a third temple often bring the Ark back into religious conversations because of its connection to ancient worship. For some Jewish and Christian groups, modern Israel is viewed through the lens of biblical prophecy. Passages such as Ezekiel chapter 37 are interpreted by some as connected to the restoration of Israel. In Christian theology, some interpretations of books, such as Daniel and Revelation, connect Israel to future events described in end-time prophecy. However, some religious scholars understand these passages as symbols rather than direct predictions about a modern country. The story of the Ark and Israel remains a mystery that continues to connect faith, history, and unanswered questions. Do you think the Ark of the Covenant will be found again, or do you think it has been lost forever? Share your opinions with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen, and you will enjoy it.